师兄姐，阿弥陀佛。
Greetings, everyone. Amitabha. Welcome to the lectures delivered by Venerable Guoxing. Let's proceed by following the etiquette. Please join palms. Bow to the Buddha. Bow to Master Sentient, the founder of Dharma Drum Mountain. Bow to the Venerable. Amitabha.
法师、师兄姐，大家早安。
Greetings,
午安
everyone.
阿弥陀佛。
Amitabha.
今天是中华禅法古宗的第
Today,
三讲。
Venerable Guoxing will deliver the third talk on the Dhamma Drum lineage of Chen Buddhism. In the previous talk, Venerable Guoxing overviewed Master Shenyan's life across the ages of 30 to 60, including Shufu's return to the life of a monk, his 60-year solitary retreat, overseas study in Japan, Shufu promoting Dhamma in the United States, and Shufu's leading Chen practice. Venerable Guoxing also introduced Shufu's Chen teachings in 3 periods. In the early period, Shufu gave Dharma talks based on the needs of the participants. In the mid-period, Shufu developed more systematic methods for Chen practice. In the late period, Shufu led practices using more advanced methods of Chen, namely silent illumination and huatou. Venerable also shared with us some first-hand stories, such as the lychee tree under which Shufu became enlightened during solitary retreat has now been transformed into an altar desk due to the construction of the monastery. Also, on Shufu's first visit to the United States, he stopped in California but did not have a robe with him. Master Xuanhua gave Master Xu Yun's robe to Shufu. Next time, when you get an opportunity to visit the Dharma Drum Memorial Hall, you may take a look at this robe, which is of special significance. Last week, at the end of Venerable's lecture, he previewed today's talk about Shufu's study in Japan and how that was related to the founding of Dharma Drum Mountain, as well as the Dharma Drum lineage of Chen Buddhism. I am sure we all want to know more about this and hear more of Shufu's stories that are not recorded in the books. Before the lecture gets started, as a kind reminder to help us concentrate on the talk, during the lecture, we will temporarily disable the chat function in Zoom. If you have any questions or ideas that you would like to share, please wait until we open the floor. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Now let's invite Venerable Guoxing to start his talk. Amitabha.
Can you hear me right now? Amitabha. So the previous 2 times when I shared, I was very nervous and because I haven't talked about this before. So every week I have to prepare all these material. And so originally I had wanted to talk about Shifu's philosophy, but last time there were parts that was not finished discussing, and it was about Shifu's Chan writings. So if we want to talk about his philosophy and thinking, that's maybe a little bit too complicated. So this time I thought that we would talk about Shifu's Chan series writings, and as well as practice. Is this simply just about meditation? And actually, when Master Shuyan was teaching meditation in the United States, it was always combined with, setting your vow for the Bodhi mind. And so during his retreat, his solitary retreat, he realized the importance of the Bodhisattva precepts. So the Bodhisattva Precepts is not just normal precept. It is deeply connected to our Bodhi mind, and ultimately how we're going to attain Bodhi wisdom. And so in this portion, I want to share this portion with everybody. And if we want everybody to see, to look at Master Shifu's overall philosophy, then I will recommend this book here. So this book, this is before he was 70 years old, maybe around 67 years old. At the time, when Shifu was about that age, he presented a lot of his experiences in a very simple way here in this book. So the content of this book is not focused on Chan meditation only, but it's a lot about his learning experience and what are the common problems of the contemporary time and how do we solve that. And this is in the year 2000, he set up the Dharma drum lineage. So later, this was the idea to set this up was already beginning in 2000. So we can see how this was developed. And so this book, Master Sheng Yan's A Journey of Learning and Insight. So today we are be two parts. So the first is on the Chan series writings, and then the second is how do we learn from the Bodhisattva Precepts. So let's start. Let's start in a different place. Everybody should know about this. About 10 days ago, have everybody heard this? The latest movie was directed by a Asian, and so how are they able to win the Oscar? And this director, she said she was holding a kind heart, or even when she was describing people who didn't have a place to live, and then they lived on cars. So in Chinese we call this as nomad land. And this group of people, they take care of each other. So they have a very classic saying that the director said, we the nomadic people is not that we don't have family, we just don't have a house, because they live in the car. So they it's not that they don't have a family, they are just houseless. So most people, they want to have a place to live, they want a house, but because when you want a house, you're often locked by and constrained by your mortgage, and so you're locked into this from when you're young all the way until you're old, but you're contained by this house. You're kind of like a guard of this house, and so our life is often like this. It's not as difficult, and we're we're limited by this house. So why am I bringing this movie and compare it to Shifu? When Shifu was in the United States, he was also a nomadic person. So, but Shifu was very confident, because when he was in the United States through Shen Jiazhen, he was able to live in an apartment, and he conducted Chan retreats in this apartment. And Master Shifu realized that Americans here are have a lot of potential. And later, the year after, when Venerable Dongzhu passed away, he had to return to Taiwan to take on the Cultural Institute's work. So he couldn't do too much work. So he let go of his position at the Great Enlightenment temples. So then consequently he started his nomadic life after that. So in the book Footprints in the Snow, he described that how he's finding a way when there's no way, or finding a path in the darkness. And he had this confidence because he sees hope, and the confidence comes from the learning of the Dharma, and that his disciples trusting him. And this is a very great support for Shifu and for his confidence. So he doesn't have to live anywhere or live in any kind of place. So when Shifu was leading Chan retreats in the United States, in his 30 years, 30 years of teaching in the United States, he was going back and forth between United States and Taiwan, and you can say that he's delivering sentient beings, but Shifu said that this is kind of comes naturally. It's not how does he have this kind of attitude? So we want to have to look at this from today, the Chan teachings. Last time I talked about originally the reason why Shifu went on a solitary retreat is because when he was in the military, he had an enlightenment experience, but he didn't have any methods. But so he's thinking, how can he find a way to practice? So even though at the time under Venerable Dongzhu, he was already a director of the magazine. So for most people, when you have a really good job, you feel very at ease and settled. And if for a monk who just became a monk, that he can be an editor, that's a really good position. And to be an editor of the magazine is already very good for a monk. And so, but Shifu, after only a year or so, he felt that this job as a kind of a cultural person, it doesn't really solve our deepest life problems. So, but he wants to investigate this life problem. So that's why he asked Venerable Dongzhu for a break to go on to solitary retreat. So when he thoroughly enlightened and from the solitary retreat, then he wanted to go to Japan to learn the contemporary methods for scholarly research. And so after his study abroad in in Japan, then he went to the United States, and then that's where he realized that this is where he found that this is the most immediate way to solve people's spiritual problems. So how do we look at this? So Shifu is not like these New Age religion. He's not like those the New Age Chan masters, and their experience is mostly from their own experience and not necessarily connected to the past. But Sentient Fa Shi's unique in that he not only does he write about his unique personal experience, but he also writes about the roots of the lineage, the all the way up to Shakyamuni Buddha. And why is this? Because when he was in solitary retreat, what was his main research? It was the Theravadas, Agama, and Vinaya, the core of Theravada Buddhism. So we always talk about the precepts and concentration and wisdom. This is during Shakyamuni's time, the most basic sutras and practice method is the sutras and the Vinaya. So let's look at this one by one. Last time, what are the main books? So if we look at this as a whole here, from the earliest Shifu's lectures to up to later kind of a collection, here we can see these as Shifu's reorganizing or a collection, a reorganizing of the methods from Shakyamuni Buddha up to today to something for methods that can be utilized by people in contemporary times. Because last time I didn't have a lot of time, so I couldn't say all that I wanted to say. So this time I wanted to, in an hour, to introduce all this to everybody.
Last time we talked about the 3 periods. In the early period, which is explicit teaching of the essentials of Chen from the great masters. In the early times in the United States, when the sequence of Chen practice was not completely systemized, Shifu referred to some of the expedient means passed on from the great masters to deliver sentient beings. The core of these methods are focused on 3 books, which are Experiencing Chen, Discourse on Chen, Essentials of the Practice and Attainment within the Gate of Chen, and the Dragon's Pearl. The core method is that right view is more important than the action alone. So what is the view and what is action? Well, view is our perception, our views. If our views are at the same level as the Buddha, and that is what the Chan master has talked about, that the mind of the Buddha is everyone's mind. And the Chan master does not have his own mind. he can sense and feel the minds of all sentient beings. What is action then? That is, how do we practice to be able to achieve the level as the mind of the Buddha? According to the Chen school, that is sudden enlightenment. Which is not as complicated as the sequence and methods in India. But that does not necessarily mean that we shouldn't practice at all. Instead, we should start practicing from our views as the first step of practice, and to see if our views match the cores of Buddha Dhamma. So now let's go over each of these books one by one. For example, in the books Experience of Chen, Dhamma Talk on Chen, Shifu really introduced the ideas following a systematic manner. So kind of share Shifu's methods. Shifu spent about 4 to 5 years on this book, which was published in 1980. Shifu started to teach Chen practice in 1976. And this book kind of included some of the Dhamma talks during 7-day retreats. As Shifu started to lead Chen retreats in the United States, all these events were recorded. And since then, Shifu started to figure out that in order to teach Chen method, he had to systematically introduce the methods of Chen and Chen practice. Some of the masters, for example, Zen in Japan, they emphasize a lot about the idea of sudden enlightenment. However, in terms of the basic theory in Buddhism, as well as the history in Buddhism, for example, the ideas, the experiences of Chen masters in history, these were not emphasized equally. Then Shifu figured out when he was to share with the participants, he needed to introduce Buddha Dharma all the way back from Sakymunis, and the practice methods from Chen school, and how to transform these methods in a way that will be suitable in the modern society. And from these 2 books, we can see Shifu's systematic methods introduced about Chen practice. These systematic methods, is it the same as the sequence Chen and from India? Not necessarily. Because Master Sheng Yan also introduced these ideas from the school of Chen, referring to the idea of sudden enlightenment. This book is also a model for a book called Hoofprint of the Ox. Why is that? Because in these 2 books, at the very beginning, in the prefaces of these 2 books, Shifu mentioned that he is not a Chen master. It's just because of the currents and these conditions that Shifu followed these conditions and came to the United States to lead Chen practice. At the beginning of these books, Master Sheng Yan wrote that the experience of Chen, what is this experience about? Well, this experience is incredible. Even though we want to clarify and systematically introduce Chen, Shifu will not stay away from the core of Chen. So the precondition is that Chen is amazing, is incredible. So how is that relevant to the other book, Hoofprint of the Ox? Because these books, Experience of Chen, Dharma Talk on Chen, they mentioned about the 10 ox picture. And this is a process, a delineation process of how a Chen master became enlightened, which was also the most important part of the book Hoofprint of the Ox. In the book Hoofprint of the Ox, at the very beginning, in the first chapter, it was not focused on the sequence of methods, but focused on the idea of emptiness, nothingness. What is the concept of nothingness? Then people became curious. What about the sequence of methods in history? Why do we start from the idea of emptiness? This is a very good question. Because this book, Hoofprint of the Ox, Dan Stevenson, Shifu's disciple in the West, who has really good karmic roots. After his participation during the 7-day retreat, he took a walk and then became enlightened. This was written by him. One year, when he came to visit Taiwan to attend academic conferences, he was asked, well, for this book, Hoofprint of the Ox, why did you start with the idea of emptiness in this book, and then followed by the history of Chen and his practice methods? Why that order? Why put the idea of emptiness in the first chapter? Then Stephen said, well, he was not sure either. He didn't know. He had no idea. Because this was taught by Shifu. Shifu asked me to kind of put that idea, the first chapter. So that basically says that Shifu wanted to put all the good Dharma and present it to everyone. But that shows the precondition of all kinds of practice is to start from the Buddha's experience, which means that you need to understand about Buddha nature at the very beginning of all kinds of practice. And all the methods kind of are directed towards self-awakening and awaken others to the intrinsic nature. So for these two books, again, in the first chapter, Shifu mentioned that Chen is inconceivable. And through this book, we can see the origin of Chen, the method, the sequence of Chen, as well as the phenomena of Chen experiences. But does that mean that everyone can experience these phenomena, the origins, the methods, and sequence? Well, according to the history, the experiences of the Chen masters in the past, no one was equally, like they were not equally the same. They were not exactly the same as one another. All these generations of Chen masters, they all had their individual experiences, but the cores of their experiences that was shared by all their experiences is the idea of emptiness that is not attached to the I, the me. So Shifu mentioned that through reading these books, at the greatest level, you may enter the state of nothingness. This idea of nothingness in Chinese is higher than emptiness because there are many levels within the idea of emptiness. But nothingness initially starts from the idea of being inconceivable. That became the method of Chen, consequentially. Or at an intermediate level, you may reach Samadhi, which is meditative absorption. And for beginners, you may experience ease and lightness. And these are the books about Shifu's teachings in the United States and the value and added the value to the books. And these Chen methods of a great master were kind of concised in this book. This book kind of introduced these ideas in brevity because the Chinese books, subtle, like the first lesson to Chen Gate, seems to be very simple for like elementary school students. But this first lesson is about doubt. Why is that related to Buddha? This is the very experience of a Chen master and the inconceivableness from the perspective of a Chen master. Or the next book, The Essentials of Practice and Attainment Within the Gate of Chen. I'll briefly introduce this book. Well, the content included in this book is not just the teachings from ancient people, but includes all the Dhamma talks from Bodhidharma to people in modern times, including the idea of sudden enlightenment that was initiated from the sixth patriarch Huineng, all the way to the application of Chen in daily lives, as well, such as the non-Chen life. Well, in China, we kind of introduce it in a way that's closer to our daily lives, which is very different from the Indian traditions.
So Chan Buddhism in China has integrated into daily life, and up to today, Venerable Xu, he talked about him here. Is collected in here, and lastly, there's a recordation of the lineage of the Chan lineage. So this has all the ancient masters all the way up to Master Sheng Yan. Master Sheng Yan received it from Venerable Ling Yuan, and he got the name Zhi Gang Wei Rou. And this is from the Linji sector, and this was received. This Dharma transmission was received in 1981 from Venerable Ling Yuan, and Shifu actually just respected all their ancient masters' writing. So he described all the ancient masters' teaching without altering or adding his own opinion into his writing. So basically, he just copied a lot of these ancient masters' writing, and he didn't really do too much commentary. So if we use our today's modern language to discuss it, it's going to be different because the ancient writing is more concise. So through the 30 years, he collected all these texts and presented the most important content in in this book, and discuss what is their practice like, and what is the important part. So we know that Shifu is not all about he's not just about getting praised or getting approval, or getting, but Shifu, what he learned is not in language, or not just basic concepts or experience. What he learned is the Chan's wisdom and compassion. So how can he share that with the modern day people? So he used 30 years to think about this, to contemplate on this, and to over time accumulate the material in the essential practice of attainment within the Chan Gate, and explain it one by one. So it develops into all these in all these different writings. So that was the previous books, and then the next book here. It's also one of the core 3 books here in the early period. So this one is the Dragon Pearl. So this is about the great masters' life experiences and their enlightened states in the process. So the previous book was about was a recordation of the ancient masters' writing, but this one is about their life and their process of practice. So this book is more suitable, is even more suitable for us to look at, because if you look at a lot of the ancient masters, if you kind of like Master Sheng Yan in the early times, when he's just like everybody, right? Our growing experience from born to and so we learn and experience life. So when we see in this book, the Dragon's Pearl, it is after that these great masters have learned Buddhism, and how did they practice after that, and how did they become a great master. So when Master Sheng Yan was collecting for this book, so he is not concerned about the different sectors or different sect or schools. So, for example, in Chinese Buddhism, there's Tiantai school, and then there's the Huayan school, or even before there was any schools, early Chan methods are also collected into this book. So, and in other words, early content from the northern and southern dynasty, the chant from that period was also collected here. So another one that's less commonly recorded, which is during the late Ming dynasties, after the late Ming dynasty, because a lot of the lineage was not clear, and they're not very well recorded, but they're very great Chan masters. But all these masters who were not recorded are recorded by Master Sheng Yan and Venerable Taishu. And so all this this collection is actually greater and transcend what we normally think of, as a Chan, from the Tang dynasty and the Song dynasty, and not a lot in the Yuan dynasty, Ming dynasty, and Qing dynasty. So, but Shifu's collection is much more average than that. It's not just focused into Tang and Song dynasty. So even up to the recent modern period, there are still great masters that are being, coming out, and so they're really close to our time. They're not just like the great masters don't just live in ancient times. It's not true that there's only great masters in the ancient time. So this is the dragon's pearl. So in the middle period, I also introduced a little bit to everybody that Master Sheng Yan teach meditation. So this is kind of a meditation group, which we have introductory meditation training sessions are kind of developed from a lot of his Master Sheng Yan's experience leading Chan retreats for social elites or talented people in the society. And there are, let me look here. So in this book, it was collected. There's four separate retreats for the social elites, that all the Dharma talks from that was collected into this book. So from every time, every retreat has a different teaching and content. So he collected it all together. So is this foundation kind of methods? But actually, in the end, Shifu also collected what we say that is these their reflection. So the retreatants' reflection, or what we often teach nowadays is the 8-form moving meditation. So these content become something that are easy for us to learn today. So before, we always have to learn these ancient masters, how they practice, but we don't have that kind of karmic roots. So how can we can't do that? So how can we learn the Chan practice? This book is great because this is what Shifu taught the social elites, and so he taught here. He converted, or digested a lot of the inconceivable teachings into something that we can easily digest. So a really great concept here, I think, is to to self-affirm and then self-elevate and dissolving of the self. And so these three concepts, these three are very easy for modern people to understand. And the primary for if we just hear, we normally think Chan masters are unfathomable, so I can't learn this. So but if we say that have confidence in yourself, and these three methods, we think we know that we can practice this. So here there are a few important points here, and there's about healthy, methodical, diligence, and flexible. And so there are these 5 aspects of conditioning, which is conditioning our eating, sleeping, breath, body, and mind. And if you feel like my mind has a lot of diluted thoughts, then you can focus on that. So sometimes you also hear that or you hear that or see other people have special special experiences or extraordinary powers, and here Shifu explained what those are. And so with these learning, we can have a healthy and right approach to our practice methods. So this book is very good for modern people. And so after this, if after this book, the next one is The Key to Chan, or Chan Gate. These books are collected from the talks and speeches from United States. There's a total of 32, and so there's from anything. Their content include anything from the 5 contemplation, or the 2 interests and the 4 practices, or a lot of the 7-day retreat Dharma talks, or if anybody has participated in 7-day retreats, they might have experience on the one-on-one interview during retreats. So these are one where a place these interview where the participant can ask the Dharma teacher questions. So actually, right now, my position at the Chan Hall, I'm responsible to hold these one-on-one interview during retreats. So that's my side job. That's where I earn a little bit of tips. But the real my primary job is the to lead a one-on-one interview. So, and actually these 2 books, The Key to Chan and Chan Gate, they also talk about they also collected essays from the Humanity magazine and the Dharma Drum magazine. And so these are articles that are connected to our life. And so this from, spiritual environmentalism, and our group practice and how we can advance practice are also collected here. And this is kind of where we can enter our practice that way here. So next, in ancient times, there's a lot of koans, or Chan riddles, or Chan stories. And so Master Sheng Yen had these 2 books, Master Sheng Yen on Chan, or 100 Gong'an. So these 2 books together have about 200 Gong'an collected here, because ancient Gong'an are Chan riddles are not explained clearly, and it's intentional. So if it's made too clear to you, then you're not going to cast any doubt. So if it's explained too much, then you won't think about it or doubt it too much. So they tell the story in such a way that it induces your curiosity and connect it, and at the same time connect directly to your life, but not allowing you to directly understand or experience. So that's how when you will develop this great doubt. And so
when Shifu was talking about these Gong'an, these were obscure in the past, but Shifu did it in the opposite way. Shifu clarified and explained in a clear way. Shifu wanted to make it so that these Gong'ans follow a principle, a spirit, and a direction. And all these details related to these Gong'an were concise into the principles, the spirit, and the directions of Chan. In that manner, the obscurity, the unclearness of the Gong'an will not cause people to think in different ways or have misunderstandings. Because sometimes when people explain Gong'an, it might not be related to Buddha, or it can even be explained in a way that is related to extraordinary experiences. If those extraordinary experiences do not align with Buddha Dharma, then it's not Buddha Dharma in nature. Therefore, In Shifu's explication of these gong'ans from the ancient Chan masters, in principle, the explanation would follow the idea of cause and effect, cause and conditions. Many people like to read these gong'ans from Chen because they don't really feel that they have to shoulder many burdens or have to know much about Buddha Dharma to be able to understand them. They want something pure, simple, and become enlightened immediately. But that's not it. Well, Shifu said, if you would like to learn about the sudden enlightenment method, then you have to take you have to learn it step by step, very slowly, to learn about these methods. This is the middle period. Well, next is the late period. Well, as we talked about previously, those were the intellects of the Chan masters in the early period. But in these writings, they were not focused on one specific or particular method of Chan. For example, silent illumination and Huatou practice. Or they were not separate retreats just for one specific method of Chan. Well, after following the year 1997, there were 7-day retreats that were exclusive for specific Chan methods. But even now, there are a lot more Chan methods in addition to silent illumination or Huatou. There are also 7-day retreats about chanting Buddha's names. These are all the methods. Well, some may say that, well, I'm learning through chanting Guan Yin's names. Well, that's also a method. Well, there's a book about Shengyan, Master Shengyan teaches Guan Yin. Well, the reason why Master Shengyan became sharp and smart was because he kept chanting Guan Yin's names. So there's no bias about all these methods that one is better than the other. But it's all about the suitableness of these methods, which method is more suitable for us. Chanting Buddha's names, silent illumination, Huatou practice. All these methods, if you focus on one method, you would eventually develop this wisdom. Well, because the Chan, the practice, the passing of the Chan mostly focus on these two methods. So that's why we focus on these two specific Chan methods. Well, all these theories of the Chan gate, as well as the practices of them, should share one common idea. That is why last year we published one book called The Theory and Practices of Chen. Well, in the past, Shifu talked about it, but these were not collected. And last year, we were able to collect all Shifu's Dharma talks about the idea, well, this difference about sudden enlightenment method and other methods. Well, it kind of boils down to the idea about the difference between direct contemplation and absolute contemplation. What is direct contemplation? Well, this is direct contemplation. It is a stage, it's a platform. Well, if we know about the sequence of methods and we have direct contemplation, we would have the foundation to develop and learn about absolute contemplation because we can calm our mind and body. And this is the difference between direct contemplation and absolute contemplation. But the other idea is about simultaneous liberation. which is frequently addressed in the agamas. And in later stages, there were also other liberation about wisdom coming out of the idea of simultaneous liberation. Or the Chen masters of Chinese Buddhism, if we look at the experiences of their enlightenment, if they did not have meditative concentration, then they were similar to the idea of wisdom liberation. And in this book, The Theory and Practice of Chen, this was based on Shifu's personal experiences and viewpoints. Shifu thinks the idea about this full enlightenment also shares the similar functions as simultaneous liberation, which was not addressed in the idea of Chen's school in the past. Because the simultaneous liberation requires both powers, the power of meditative concentration as well as the power of wisdom. Well, since all the essence of Chinese Buddhism is at Southern schools, Mahayana meditation, that means you do not need to have that meditative concentration, because this Mahayana meditation is not the sequence meditative concentration. Even in the daily lives, which is super busy, you would still be able to have that concentration through wisdom. From the perspective of a Chen master who has fully awakened and attained enlightenment, the idea of simultaneous liberation was acquired by the Chen masters who have fully awakened. This was not addressed in the past. And after Shifu talked about this idea, I started to think about, well, to be able to connect or combine Chen's school and the Southern school, we have to kind of understand it from the history across 2,000 years. And this is the kind of problem issue that I want to resolve. So what is the issue? Well, the meditative concentration of simultaneous liberation, according to Chinese Buddhism, that belongs to the Mahayana meditation. It's kind of different. One is meditative concentration, while the other is wisdom. Well, my idea is to be able to see meditative concentration from the perspective of wisdom. Well, some of the practice experiences would be to attain meditative concentration through wisdom. About 5 years ago, around 5 years ago, there's a liberal arts school here in the Dharma mountain here. I was thinking about writing a thesis on meditative concentration. Well, then I thought, well, this topic cannot be fully elaborated in like 3 or 5 years, but would require 20 or even 30 years of time to be able to solve. And to kind of explain this question or issue in a way that's comprehensible, which is the wise meditative concentration. This is before we become enlightened. This can be learned before we become fully enlightened. And this is the book, The Theory and Practice of Chen. Well, Shifu's Chen methods essentially was derived from the idea that how we can teach these methods of Chen in a way that's comprehensible, that's easy for people to understand in the modern society, which is also why or how we should strive to promote Buddha Dhamma. Okay, now when it comes to silent illumination and Huatou practice, and if we let's look at silent illumination first. Well, this was practiced in Shifu's solitary retreat. And when Shifu was leading Chen retreats, Shifu could to kind of contemplate and to observe even over 100 Chen practitioners. Shifu can contemplate, resonate, can feel their feelings. And this is the power of silent illumination at a really high level. Well, this is not extraordinary power for sure. So what is this? This is Buddha's mind, which is not attached to oneself, which is not self-centered. This is the mind of the Buddha, which is also the minds of all sentient beings. He could sense the minds of all the sentient beings and doesn't really have his own mind. And when he could feel and understand all sentient being minds, he could feel the minds of sentient beings from the perspective of compassion and help solve their problems. So after full enlightenment, the issue then became how to really help all sentient beings. So to kind of react in response to their minds. They're suffering so much. How can we help them and liberate them from suffering? So the benefits of silent illumination is that you can sense, you can feel the minds of all sentient beings. Then we can feel like all these cause and effect and cause and conditions, they were all connected. They're not, they are interdependent. When I suffer, it's because of the others. And when you suffer, you kind of deserve it. And that is, then coming back to the second method, which is a Huatou practice. The book is Master Shenyan Teaches Huatou Practice. It's a very thick book, has a lot of content to it. And this was compiled in 2009 and published in 2009. Which also had a preface written by Master Chen, who was the first disciple of Shifu that became enlightened. Well, after a practice of 30 to 40 years, Master Chen published many books and kind of was trying to catch up with Shifu. And this is wisdom. When he tried to deliver all sentient beings, he thought about what they need. This book, Master Shenyan Teaches Huatou Practice, he collected some of the Dharma talks during the 10-day retreats, for example, at DDRC. I participated and felt really good.
Oh, and I thought that this, I was very fortunate. And Huatou practice is not just about koan. They also talk about the Platform Sutra. And so if everybody are interested in Huatou practice, this book is great. You'll be really glad you read this book. read this book. And all right, I'll talk about this a little bit. This book is my last recommendation. This is the most difficult book, The Record of Illuminating the Principle. And the reason is Shifu has talked about the Platform Sutra multiple times, but he never taught it all completely, and it never became a book. So when Shifu was teaching Record of Illuminating the Principle, then he realized that Master Shen Hui has breadth of knowledge and of principle and doctrine, and also knowledge on Confucius and Taoist writing. So not only is he enlightened, he also understand the cultural in greater culture in China. So here he looked at the Indian the three systems, which is the middle way, and the Tathagata Garbha, and collected it into the non-duality of emptiness and existence. And he collected, using from this perspective, he looked at the whole Buddha Dharma as a whole through the lens of Chan school, essentially developing, this introductory of Chan Buddhism. And this is very difficult. This is very hard to understand. And so for any of you who are going to read this, you'll realize that this is a very advanced practice. It's an advanced Buddha Dharma. So this is the end of my book recommendation. So and so here, Shifu in the United States, his talks are mostly have a Chinese translation, and I talked about it last time. So it's not just these 4 books. These are my collection of books that are translated from English to Chinese. So for Chinese readers, this would be great. You can experience what in the West, their life in the West is often, better, because I actually feel that Shifu, when he was teaching to people in the West, he's more open in some ways, and he's opening his heart and teaching what he has shared. And so when I was reading his teaching to the Westerners, it's more direct. So because a lot of the Chinese content, oftentimes there's a lot of is set up in Chinese cultural background. Maybe it's a little bit more complicated. So because you need to understand a lot of the backgrounds. So in the West, when Shifu was teaching there, he's teaching from the direct heart, and so that's so yeah. So this is the first class. So is there any question here? We'll open up for question for a little bit, because next I will talk about Chan practice. It's not just seeking a wisdom. You also have to give rise or set vows for the Bodhi mind. So for the first section, I'll conclude here. So we open up for a question here. If anybody has any question, you can use the raise hand function, or you can write your questions in the chat box. We will read that out loud. Someone has raised their hand. Okay, there is one. Wen Yu, please ask your question.
法师阿弥陀佛，
法师阿
世
弥陀佛。
界师父阿弥陀佛。 法师，我这个禅修经验很浅
So,
薄，所以我
Pastor,
问一个
my meditation
很
experience is
浅的
very
问题
limited.
哦，
So
那
I'll
你不
ask
要
a
见
very
笑。
simple question.
法师刚刚说的那个智慧
Pastor
的
said
禅定，就是在讲具
that
解脱的时候，
the
好，那个禅定是一种智慧
meditation
的禅
of
定，
wisdom,
是不是就
when
是
you're
安
talking about
住
the
在那个
simultaneous
当然是理论上，就是
liberation,
安住在那个空性，
is this based
这
on
种
the
无我的这种
emptiness
禅定，
nature, the kind of not-self
这个叫做智慧的禅
meditation?
定。
This is considered the wisdom meditation. And you can say that because when you're talking about the Southern Theravada school, they have to go through the all four and 8 meditation level. They have to get to the highest level of meditation to obtain that the wisdom meditation. So for the Chinese Chan meditation, it is not fixed, and you don't have to. It's not just in a stillness. So it doesn't only arise after going through all the meditation, the Chan levels. It's direct. It comes directly from wisdom, because they do not have an ego, and so all the Dharma is there already. And as long as when their mind is not moving and they're completely aware of all the phenomenon, and it's a little bit difficult to, because when Shifu has a conversation with Dalai Lama, Shifu asked Dalai Lama, so after the complete enlightenment, can you observe the current phenomena? And so Shifu said that's possible. So this is in the Chinese Buddhism, the unique thing about Chinese Buddhism, and it comes from the sequential methods in the Theravada school, and realizing that you can enter directly from the point of wisdom, and it's different from than the
谢谢法师，阿弥陀
concentration
佛。
from sequence order, but the power of meditation and concentration is there. So thank you for the question. So is there any question here? Okay. Carrie Fu, please speak up. Thank you, Sister Carol. Thank you, Venerable Guoxing. I want to ask is, when we have a direct contemplation and absolute contemplation, can you explain that a little bit more? So we start from direct contemplation, or so actually, in the book, Shifu said this like this, but actually we teach people how to do direct contemplation. And so there's still a sequence here. So we have say there's a medium level, and calming and contemplation 7-day retreat. So here in that retreat, we practice counting the breath, and there's some shamatha, and then we practice vipassana. Then we practice shamatha and vipassana together. So then after that, we practice the middle contemplation. So a lot of people have difficulties with that. So now at the time, if you go directly into middle contemplation, then you can practice direct contemplation. So this is, in other words, what we call, you don't give him any description, we don't give him any name or sign, you don't give a comparison. And so when your thoughts have all stopped operating, all the phenomena that you see and experience, it's its original state, then you know that that's the current contemplation, present contemplation. So all the things that you see clearly, your mind is not interfering with your experience or connecting to your connect, the experience not connecting to your personal view. That at that moment, that's the most, let's say, that's the most direct. And so actually when we were learning, the content is like this. When we're getting older, it's difficult to learn because we're older, because you have too much knowledge base and experience background. So if for the direct contemplation is about living in the present moment. So absolute contemplation is different. So absolute contemplation, it just has not any fixed kind of content. It's just about the current conditions, the constant conditions, and clearly connecting to the wisdom. Direct contemplation is still not connected to wisdom. It's just connected to the concentration power. And so this concentration power comes from shamatha and vipassana. So so direct contemplation is to observe our life through shamatha and contemplation, and that using that calming power, and you through our when our mind is not interfering, you can do that. But that's still without the power of wisdom. It's simply just that, whatever is happening right now, that's what it is. There's not a lot of personal added stuff. But absolute contemplation is after you gain wisdom, you can there's still a little bit of a difference to direct contemplation. So this book is, we can in the future we can Master Sheng Yan in the Dharma Drum collection is in the past 2 months it's been digitizing and onto the so when it's done, it will be fully available on the internet, so you can see all these books online. So if you can't buy them in the United States, then you can look at it through the our website here. So someone else raised their hand. Thank you, Venerable. The next, and thank you, Carrie, for your question. So Sister Linda, please say your question. So this will be the last question. So because that will, yeah. So Lena, so thank you, Venerable. My question is very simple. So Venerable, when Master Sheng Yen is in Meinong, when he enlightened under the lychee tree, do you know what the story? What is his story behind his enlightenment? So everybody can see through. Let's see. What's his name? Let me look. There's a. Let me see. Hold on. So it should be. What's his name? His last name is Chen. Let me. Can everybody see? Let's everybody see this. Hold on a second. Here, 2005. Okay, let me see. It's like akin to Shifu's introduction to the hut of Shifu's solitary retreat. So I can't really think of it right now. He's not written by Shifu himself, because he doesn't really write about his own personal experience, but because sometimes when he's described it to other people, and other people will record it in a kind of a autobiographic form. And so I can't tell what the book was called. I can't find this. Okay. So can you see my screen here? Do you see the Dharma Drum collection? So what we see right now is it's just your PowerPoint. So that means like my new screen you cannot see. Okay, let me see.
Let's take a look. It's an autobiography written by Chen Huijian. He has written a very small booklet about Master Xing Yan. If you'd like to learn more about it, please refer to this small booklet written by Chen Huijian that gives a direct delineation of Shifu stories. Are you able to see my slides now? Well, Venerable, would you like to continue with the lecture or take a small break, short break? Okay, can you all see the slide about Bodhisattva Precepts? Well, since there's not so much time left for today's lecture, I'll continue, but if you need a very short break, please do so. Because there's so much content, rich content to cover today, Venerable will continue his lecture. Well, for Chen practitioners in general, well, you focus on one method of Chen and then become enlightened, that's it. But why should we teach or learn about Bodhisattva precepts or the idea of sila, concentration, and wisdom? Why not just to focus on one method and that's it? Well, the introduction I'll be talking about today about Bodhisattva Precepts was included in the Chen magazine published in the winter of 1997. Shifu's transmission of Bodhisattva Precepts in late 1997. And this was then published and included in the Chen magazine in early 1998. Well, usually the goal of our practice is to kind of resolve craving, aversion, delusion, and to develop our wisdom. So in terms of Chen practice, are we able to achieve those goals? Yes, we could. But can we also achieve those goals through keeping precepts? Well, in terms of the general precepts is the sila, concentration, and wisdom. But in terms of the Chinese precepts, well, that's the Bodhisattva precepts. Those who have precepts to break are Bodhisattvas, but those who have no precepts to break are outer path followers, which has similar function as ascendant enlightenment, because in the Chinese Bodhisattva precepts, we'll have to deliver all sentient beings through the perspective of Buddha. For example, by practicing the 3 sets of pure precepts, the 5 precepts, and the 10 virtues, to purify both our body, mind, and speech. And after the purification, we would be able to attain wisdom. That's clear. And then that's the idea of making a vow, the Bodhi mind. Well, across Shifu's entire life, his mission was to help deliver all sentient beings, to help them understand themselves. And also to hope that all sentient beings can resolve of Bodhi mind after clearing their vexations and afflictive emotions. So the functions of Bodhisattva precepts is exactly this, to help achieve these goals. So next I'll talk about Bodhisattva precepts. There are several themes in this small booklet about Bodhisattva precepts. At the very beginning, Shifu did not mention about what to do and what not to do. Shifu talked about this idea of compassion, where was that originated from? Well, normally we talk about the idea of empathy. Well, we're kind, we're compassionate. When we talk about these ideas, we just mean that they're kind, but that's kind of different from the mind of compassion. So the genuine love and compassion kind of arise from a penetrating insight into the true nature of our own existence. So the real compassion arises from the empty nature. Why is that? Because when we see ourselves, when we see our lives, we're kind of interdependent on each other. This is the fact, this is the reality. For example, because we often say that the earth now is like Earth's village. And global warming influences everyone who's living on the earth, that no one can escape from. And if we kind of see that from the perspective of cause and effect, cause and conditions, the karma of everyone is connected with everyone else, that we cannot escape or separate from. So when we finally find that all these things are equal, essentially, how can we escape from these sufferings from this interdependence? We'll have to focus on our intrinsic nature, the insight into the nature of our own existence. Can we solve this problem and escape from all these sufferings? If it is not the compassion that arises from the intrinsic nature, the self nature, then that does not have wisdom with it, and is kind of limited in its function. It's kind of still self-centered in a way. And the kind of issues that it can help us solve are just related to the ones that we're facing currently, but not the core issues with the issues at heart that's related with self-centeredness. Well, Buddha, the idea of Buddha is not only awakening himself, but also trying to help awaken the others, all the sentient beings. So the idea of having to resolve this Buddha mind is to know where that source of compassion comes from. And next, Shifu talked about who is a Bodhisattva, since we're talking about Bodhisattva precepts. Let me give an example. About 100 years ago, for example, if I talked about some Bodhisattva, who's online? Let's see who's online in the participants. Are you online? Bodhisattva? I'm calling you a Bodhisattva. But 100 years ago, who was a Bodhisattva? Well, if we heard the term Bodhisattva 100 years ago, who would we be looking at? We're not looking at people around us, but looking up to the sky, to the heaven. Because 100 years ago, the understanding of Bodhisattva is different from today. It's about looking up to the sky to search for Bodhisattva. At least that's the idea of the Chinese people in ancient times. Because we have a saying that if you raise your head, you will be able to see Bodhisattva, the gods. Because in the past, the understanding of Bodhisattva is not a normal human being, but the Bodhisattva lives in the heaven. Well, the understanding of Bodhisattva kind of changed after Master Tai Xu started to propose an idea. If you have the Bodhi mind, then you are a Bodhisattva. But 100 years ago, the term Bodhisattva, it was not relevant to us as normal human beings. We're not sages. Well, Shifu wished that every one of us could become a Bodhisattva. And how can we become a Bodhisattva ourselves? If we want to seek the supreme wisdom and to deliver and benefit all sentient beings and help them become awakened and enlightened, if we have that wish, that vow, then we actually achieve like half of the requirements of a Bodhisattva. And this is just aspiring to achieve this, or a wish. But then we also have to make that into actions to actually implement. So after we are fully awakened and to see our intrinsic nature, Buddha nature, will naturally develop compassion. And at that time, when you're awakened yourself, you will be able to help all the innumerable sentient beings to awaken to the same Buddha nature. See all these 4 levels up here on the slides. If you kind of achieve any one of them, you're on the way to become a Bodhisattva. Well, when we're looking at Bodhisattva precepts, sometimes we focus on the idea of precepts, but not necessarily the requirements of being a Bodhisattva. But here, we kind of wish that everyone, all sentient beings, can have the ability to become a Bodhisattva or a Buddha. Then Shifu kind of introduced all these difficulties that may be involved to become a Bodhisattva. Well, if you want me to have a Buddha mind to help others, well, I'm not practicing very efficiently. How am I supposed to be able to help others? Well, this question kind of boils down to the idea that we're not yet sages, we're still normal people. Well, we have to deliver ourselves first and then to help others. Well, then there are 2 kinds of people who hold different views about it. Well, one group of people would focus on the idea of cultivating faith and devotion to the Buddha. So if I'm not practicing in depth for this cycle of life, then I'll just try to have more merits by having devotion to the Buddha. And the other group of people have the idea that they would focus solely on striving for experience of emptiness and wishing to kind of escape from the toil and travail of life, which is the passive liberation from life and death, to leave this world. And then Shifu kind of explained, I used an analogy to compare this idea to swimming. Well, many of the practitioners were thinking about, well, ultimately, to learn Buddha Dharma, we want to liberate from the cycle of life and death. But Shifu used the idea of swimming to kind of explain this idea. Well, the sea of suffering on earth, in the human world, you will have to learn from it. You have to learn to learn in the midst of this sea of suffering. You have to learn in the midst of suffering. Well, you wouldn't be able to learn all these in other levels, in the heaven or in other vehicles. The only place where you can learn is to be able to learn in the midst of suffering in the human world, in the whirlpool of cyclic existence. to be able to learn the functions of swimming similarly. And then you can to help yourself while also helping others at the same time. Some people are not confident in their abilities. And how can we overcome these difficulties?
Shifu raised 4 methods that can allow people to overcome this problem of confidence. And the first one is contemplation and observation. So we can observe and contemplate on our body, speech, and mind. And you can see that when we are we're stuck with vexation. And the second one is a unmovable faith and vow. So the faith and or trust is a trust to the Buddha, and so a vow is what we need to have. We have a vow to make a pure land on earth, and so our trust should be our faith onto the Buddha, and then faith or trust to our intrinsic nature, and that is transcending the reliant on other power. And so the third one is to continue to develop love and compassion. So Shifu said, the true source of compassion and kindness is a realization of our self and intrinsic nature. And so an ordinary person, we have to see whether our compassionate mind, is it just from the ordinary kind, or is that like other religion, that they have also very great compassion that is transcending the ordinary people. It's almost like that God-like compassion, or is our compassion like the Buddha, where it's egoless? So that we have to continue to develop and practice. So then the last one is a penetrating insight into the nature of emptiness. So if you do not have a direct understanding of nature of emptiness, then we will still have a lot of trouble, fear, and questions to the life and death of our life. And so then our hearts and mind will be limited, and we'll only care about ourselves. So this is what Shifu, the 4 points that Shifu brought for us to transcend our ordinary heart, and not just and transcend where we are only thinking about ourselves, and for others we'll think about that later. So these are the 4 points here. So the next one is when we talk about the Bodhisattva Precepts. So once I uphold the precepts, then I can't do anything anymore. But Shifu said, when Buddha developed these system of precepts in Vinaya, the intention is not to limit us and to imposing these disciplinary strictures on practitioner. So we're not judging people on people are like, oh, these people are not following the rules, and then you're using these rules to measure, to put people in these boxes. This person is following the precept, this person is not, or this person broke this precept. So it seems like the precepts are ones that it's to limit us, or to contain us. But Master Shengyan said that Buddha's precepts is for people to clarify and purify their body and mind, is to help people and to have less vexations and mental afflictions. So that's the main intention of Vinaya practice, because Buddha precepts in Buddhism, the purpose is to, well, let's say if it's in the sequence we talk about precepts, concentration, and then ultimately we want wisdom, right? It's not that like all the worldly it's not about like worldly guides or moral ethics, but especially Bodhisattva precept, it transcends the Sravaka precepts, or you can say that's a liberation precepts, and he also transcends, humanly world ethics, or and human world ethics for what people normally when they hold these ethical precepts, they'll do good things and not do bad things in order to gain a rebirth as in the human world. But from a Bodhisattva precepts, the ultimate goal is to develop all sentient beings compassion and wisdom, and to allow all sentient beings to be free from suffering. And so that is the goal of the Bodhisattva precept. So if we talk about it like this, then people don't be afraid that like, oh, this precept seems like it's not about like what you can do and cannot do in your life. That's not the ultimate goal here. This is just the item in the Vinaya. It's a very, very fine and granular detail. So how can we collect all the precepts and make it into something, an anchoring points for us to observe ourselves? So then that is the 10 virtues. So I'm going to say here, when Shakyamuni Buddha transcends the worldly life, how can, and then we can see that in Mila Buddha, he was able to, Maitreya Buddha, the reason why Maitreya can come into the world is because when people have cultivated the 10 virtues, when their body, speech, and mind is pure, then at this moment, Maitreya Buddha can say that the merit and of the world, the humanly world is fulfilled, and then Maitreya will appear. So the 10 virtues is actually 10 not do's. So that is no killing, stealing, no sexual misconduct, lying, divisive speech, hard speech, frivolous speech, craving, aversion, and delusion. So in collection is 3 categories, which is the body, speech, and mind. And so here you have to focus, you have to pay attention here. So normally a precept is about the body, right? About things, actions you can or cannot do. And so speech is like about what you can or cannot speak. You can't, scold people. But the most core is to purify our mind, the karma of our mind. So when in the Huayan Sutra, I've seen this, and in one of the chapters that is called the Fanxing chapter, it talks about within one thought or one mind, that the reason why you can enlighten in just one thought, the reason is the 10 virtues, when you implement them in practice, that if you practice the 10 virtues, is course connected to the egoless not self, then that your one thought can be the same as the Buddha, and that's where you can attain attain Buddhism. And so that this is the religious cultivation chapter in the Huanji. One mind, a pure one mind of a one mind Buddha is Buddha. And so that's the power of the 10 virtues. So then the next one is the 3 cumulative pure precepts. And so the last that was the anchoring point, the 10 virtues of the anchoring points. But you have to resonate that with emptiness. So then you can resonate into the non-phenomenon world. But then in a broader perspective is the 3 cumulative pure precepts. So this is kind of related to our vow to become a Buddha. And so this becomes the precepts for becoming a Buddha. So if you do not have the vow to achieve the ultimate wisdom, but you probably won't make such kind of vow. But if our vows are for ultimate wisdom and ultimate benefit to all sentient being, then we have to make this the 3 cumulative pure precepts. So it is to cut all unwholesome deeds by keeping all precepts, and accumulate merit by doing all beneficial deeds, and also work for the salvation of all sentient beings. So these are the 3 cumulative pure precepts. So the Bodhisattva precept, the goal of that is to let us accumulate all the merit, and this merit, and what is the purpose of this merit is to become a Buddha, become a Buddha, and to deliver sentient beings. So from the moment that you take on the precepts, you've already planted the seeds to become a Buddha, and this seed in Chinese Buddhism is called a sudden accepting. So this good deed will carry with you all the way up until you become a Buddha. And so this will influence you from your whole life until you die. And so normal precepts work like that, and then it stops when you die. But Bodhisattva precepts, it transcends our life, our human life. So when you make such vow, when you take on the 3 cumulative precepts, this Bodhi mind and the seeds, the Buddha seeds, is planted, it will continue. It will carry with you from life after life, and it transcends our worldly life, and of birth and death. And this power will always be there, and it will not diminish. And so this is why Shifu encouraged everybody to see that, this is such a great thing. And I feel personally that the benefit of this precept, and I truly believe in this. And so when I take on the Bodhisattva precepts, I feel really I'm not just this life. I don't just have this kind of this motivation to learn to study Buddhism, to practice Buddhism in this life. So I have because in my past life I have made a Bodhisattva vow, so that's why I have the fortune to study Buddhism under Shifu. So I feel very fortunate and happy about this. So once I take on, I took on the Bodhisattva precept, I was really happy for half a year. So what does that mean? If you ever participated in 7-day retreat, you can feel that afterwards. You can feel that kind of calmness and can continue for you and for a long time after the retreat. Sometimes 7 days, sometimes up to half a year. So sometimes when people when they feel a lot of when I took on the Bodhisattva precepts, I felt that I felt that the power of protection from the Bodhisattva precept is not from the precept itself. It was already protecting me from my past life all the way up to this life, and allowed me to learn to learn under Master Sheng Yen. And not only that, it can carry with you all the way up to Buddhahood. So with Bodhisattva Precepts, I'm happy every day. So that's these two things.
Okay, next. After we have this Bodhisattva mind, it's not about benefiting ourselves, but also we have to learn how to benefit others, all sentient beings. So how can we help benefit others? Well, there are two major directions. One is the four immeasurable minds, whereas the other is four means of gathering sentient beings. When we talk about the four immeasurable minds, these are the idea of being kind, being compassionate, being joyful, and also to have equanimity. And when we talk about kind, we use it in the context of kind parents, kind mother, kind father. But when we're faced with others, how can we also develop this idea of kindness? Well, in the Buddha Dhamma, there is the idea of unconditioned compassion. We could also say that's following the conditions to be compassionate, like how Shifu lived in the United States to follow conditions. And in Buddha Dhamma, these no conditions would lead to the grand compassion. It's not like we have no relationships, these conditions that we can develop compassion. It's like we follow these conditions that we can develop compassion. So that's not specific to a subject. And that's the idea of unconditioned compassion. And the idea of compassion is to see the sufferings of all sentient beings and to kind of start from the nature of their sufferings, to help them escape from the nature of sufferings. So how can we develop this idea of compassion then? In Buddha Dhamma, we have the idea of unity of great compassion within the same body. Well, like we talked about this mind of Buddha, because there is no mind of oneself, Buddha can sense and feel the minds of all sentient beings. And starting from the mind of the Buddha, Buddha can feel all the minds of the sentient beings and can see the sufferings of all sentient beings. So for experienced practitioners, they can feel and sense the sufferings of all sentient beings. And the true compassionate mind is the unity of grand compassion. Who is the representative of this? That's Guan Yin Bodhisattva. Because Guan Yin Bodhisattva could sense and feel the sufferings of all sentient beings, right? And this is the idea of the four immeasurable minds. Well, the all joy is to wish that all sentient beings can become enlightened. The idea of equanimity, well, it's because the idea is to renounce all these feelings about liking, not liking. Because we have this idea that if we like it, then we continue to work on it. But if we don't like it, we stop working on it. But the idea of equanimity is that all sentient beings are equal. So everything is equal. And that is the highest level of equanimity. That means that all sentient beings, they're equal. There's no higher level or lower level of sentient beings. Everyone is equally important and precious. And these are the four immeasurable minds. Well, we have this mind, this immeasurable mind. We still need an anchoring point, right? What anchoring point that we can use and leverage to practice in our daily lives? And that is the four means of gathering sentient beings. how can we do that? Well, we can do that through giving loving speech, beneficial action, and working alongside others, these actions of Bodhisattva. Through these actions, we can develop the path of Bodhisattva. Well, the four immeasurable minds is to have these vows, to develop these vows of immeasurable minds. And in real life, the four means of gathering sentient beings is to have the four principles to guide our actions in our daily lives, to be able to benefit all sentient beings, to be able to deliver all sentient beings as a career. Well, it seems like we're almost approaching the end of today's lecture. There's not so much time left. Well, it seems like we may have just 1 minute left according to the original assigned time slot for today's lecture, but we still can extend the lecture for a few more minutes. Okay, now finally, and almost like a conclusion to today's talk. Well, today we talked about Chen practice as a first class. As a Chen practitioner, however, if he or she can only benefit himself or herself, then this kind of practice is just alleviating some of the vexations for one individual. But originally, when we talk about Bodhisattva's mind is to be able to feel like ourselves, we are closely connected to all sentient beings. So the very original direction is to guide all of our practice from Buddha's experiences. And our practice is to kind of escape from self-centeredness, and also to hope that all sentient beings can escape from these vexations and afflictive emotions. So we need to develop our own Bodhi mind. And through our practice, Chen practice, the internal power of Chen practice, to kind of help weaken and lessen these craving, aversion, delusion, arrogance, and doubts of all sentient beings. If we keep practicing ourselves and help all sentient beings to practice in the same way, then we won't be troubled by all these vexations and afflictive emotions or be confused by them. And then we find, like, if we have this Bodhi mind, then we can also develop our own confidence stronger and stronger. And when we develop a stronger confidence in ourselves, and we can also become a Buddha, and then we're getting closer to the wisdom of a Buddha. Therefore, because this is about the idea of becoming a Buddha, the facts about becoming a Buddha, is because his wisdom and all of Buddha's merits about delivering sentient beings. This is a fact. So there's efforts that we have to pay, right? So apart from all these retreats, we need to kind of develop a Buddha mind, to practice Bodhisattva path, receive Bodhisattva precepts, and to kind of devote ourselves to Buddha Dharma. And in this manner, the kind of wisdom that we seek for and the sentient beings that we deliver. And then in this way, we kind of we're with the idea of know oneself, know self. Then we won't be attached to ourselves. We won't be thinking about like our lack of abilities or lack of wisdom. We'll kind of dwell on the sides that we don't have that of a great mind. This is all the restrictions for ourselves. Because at the very beginning, the Bodhisattva Precepts kind of use Buddhas wisdom and minds to guide our practice. And Buddha believes that every one of us, our intrinsic nature is equal. It's just we're not developing it yet. How do we develop it then? Let's start from receiving Bodhisattva precepts. Like we're learning how to swim in the midst of sea of suffering, right? This is participation in the world. And then to discover, well, to help ourselves and to help others, this idea is to be able to achieve, is the process of achieving and attaining Buddhahood and to become a Bodhisattva. So finally, should we continue with the transfer of merits first or continue with the Q&A session of the lecture? Can we start with the questions, Venerable, and then we'll continue with the transfer of merit? Let's see. Sister Lily, can you please share with us your question? Now you can speak now, Sister Lily. Let's invite Sister Lily to share her question. Well, it seems she has not heard us yet. Now let's see. We also have Michael in the queue. Hello, Venerable. Hello, Sister. I have a question for Venerable. Well, you were talking about the chapter of religious cultivation in the Flower Garment Sutra. Well, that reminds me of the idea of meditation, wisdom, to have equal emphasis of those two. So should we also use the goal of focusing on sila, concentration, wisdom? Well, the goal could be this, but if we don't have an anchoring point in our daily lives, then we kind of lose the directions and the goals and targets. So this anchoring point, for example, from this chapter in the Flower Garment Sutra, well, there is another chapter prior to religious cultivation chapter. Remember what Shifu has told us about this sutra, about implementing some of these ideas in our daily lives. Well, in addition to religious cultivation, there was also a chapter that we can learn from to be able to apply in our daily lives, to make vows, to practice. And this chapter, well, this practice, well, in our daily lives, there could be 141 methods. Well, in a sutra, it's a chapter, the purifying actions chapter. There were 141 ways that we can practice in our daily lives, almost from getting up, brushing our teeth. We have to observe our body, mind, and speech, and to help benefit all sentient beings. And that is the anchoring point that we can leverage. And finally, we ultimately want to achieve the state of no appearance, but we can still act and take actions in our daily lives. This is a purifying cultivation chapter that gives us this anchoring point to help us and guide us our daily actions in practice. Thank you very much, Venerable, and thank you for the question from Michael. Sister Lily, could you please unmute yourself and open your microphone?
We'll see if there are any other people with questions. Okay, Sister Lena has another question. So please turn on your microphone. Okay, I would like to ask that you mentioned the Bodhisattva precept has protected you for a period. When you said protect, could you explain a little bit more what you mean by that? And so it's not just to protect me for a period, but what I experienced was, I was very happy. I was very joyful for half a year, and then so after half a year, then I became a monk. So when I said protection, that's what I discovered, that it's not just I was protected in this life, that I was also protected, in my past lives. It was protecting me up to this life, and so that's why I have the causes and conditions to learn Buddha Dharma with Shifu, and that's what I mean by protection. So when Shifu said, talk about when you receive the Bodhisattva precept, from the day you take it to all the way you become a Buddha, you're also protected from the precepts itself. The body of the precept protects you in a different way. So up to your Buddhahood. So we say there's the body of precepts. This is what we talk about it. There's when you set a Buddha vow, you continue to accumulate good karma and also merit, so we don't have to worry about whether we're still very deluded and ignorant, and we also make mistakes. Well, so when you make mistakes, you'll have a natural causes and effect. But when you that beginner intention to set this vow, it's actually it's connected to the nature of emptiness. So Buddha Dharma, when Shakyamuni Buddha at the beginning, when he didn't really think about what his past life was about, or so the humanly Shakyamuni Buddha, when he first set his vow, is when he left the palace and he saw life, death, illness, and sickness, and so that's when he set the vow. So when he became a Buddha, he realized that he didn't just put a lot of effort to become Buddhahood, that he was actually practicing for many lives in the past. But when that moment when he set the resolve for Buddhahood, when he left the palace and saw the sufferings of people, he returned to his original resolve. And it's simply just like once he completely enlightened, he saw and realized that this original resolve is connected to multiple past lives, multiple kalpas, and it's all connected, and so Shakyamuni Buddha himself is like this. So Master Sheng Yen is also like this. So he when he saw the snake eating the frog, he thought that, like, oh, if it was the frog, then where would it be? So normally we would think, like, well, why would it doesn't seem like a very deep question or deep doubt, but Shifu said that this is his great doubt, and so that when he's solved that, he's no longer afraid of death. So from that we see that our doubt, our questions in life it can be deeply connected to our practice. So Shifu has a lot of good karmic roots, and so he sees that from from the perspective of the frog, he can see this such questions. So this is all accumulated from past life. So I used to, when I was a kid, I'll buy these worms to feed it to the birds, and so if you see the bird see the worm, you see the samsara. But my karmic roots are very weak. I was buying worm to feed the birds, so that's different. And so when Shifu saw the frog, he had his Bodhi mind. arises, and he had the great Tao. So I have another question. Can I ask another question? So when we're talking about seeing our true nature and enlightenment and realization, is that different? So that's the same thing. But when we talk about enlightenment, how do I say this? The level of that enlightenment is there are many different levels, and so there's a section in the Buddha's classic, and there's levels. There are different levels. But when you talk about the seeing the true nature, intrinsic nature, that means that you're seeing the emptiness nature. But it's kind of a core. It's very core. There's not too many levels. It's just once you see what the basic nature is in the question. So thank you, Venerable's answers. So let's see. So the time is up. So we'll conclude our today's talk here. So Venerable, do you have anything you want to like to add? So today, the course today, the primary is a continuation of the first two lecture. And because everybody's understanding of Master Sheng Yen is like, oh, he has a lot of great karmic roots, and through these two series, two lecture, we see that Shifu's guidance for us is actually methodical. There's a methodical practice. So, but not only that, you have to couple that with the setting the resolve for the Bodhi mind, and also receiving the Bodhisattva Precepts. So today, I would like to share this and hope that everyone can renew our practice and devote ourselves and enable our society and the world. So this is what I'll talk about next time. The Dharma drum lineage of Chan Buddhism, the difference with that to Chan Buddhism. What's the difference? So in traditional Chan Buddhism doesn't really talk about the resolve for the bodhicitta mind, and what's the difference in that. So is there such thing is there pure Chan school, and how is it connected to the today contemporary world? And so I will from Shifu's a little booklet. He has a little booklet, and in 2002 this was published, and it talks about the Dharma drum lineage Chan Buddhism, and talks about the difference between the traditional Chinese Chan Buddhism, what's the same, what's different. And I would like to with these lectures to share this and to set the foundation for everyone, so that everyone can slowly understand what Shifu's Dharma drum lineage and building a Pure Land on earth. What is that about? And it is based on the Bodhisattva's self-awakening, self-realization, and helping others to realize motivation. Is based on that motivation. And so that's how we can bring hope to the future of our world. So in Taiwan, yesterday, there was it just started the more stringent control for the coronavirus. So today, right now, most people are very fortunate. We can study through online, but of course, it's still the beginning of suffering. So if my lectures wasn't good enough, people will lead to more vexation. So this is another kind of process of vexation and suffering. But but this is my ignorance is transferred to you, and this is everybody's common karma, collective karma, bad karma. So if this is not good, we hope that it will be better next time. So I hope let's give hope that I will quickly become better. So thank you, Venerable, today. So we realized that the value of Bodhisattva, and that it's such a great thing. And so thank you, Venerable, not only just sharing, not only is it important to practice Chan meditation, we also have to make a vow and set a resolve. So thank you, Venerable, and we very much look forward to the next lecture, the content of the next lecture. So the next chapter is probably the concentrated essence will be presented next time. So we look forward to it. So at the end, will please Venerable lead us to transfer the merit. Then I hope that everyone to have a transformation of your own life, and hope that your life has connect with the Buddha Dharma. So if we wanna, we need to make a vow, and we have to use it in a lively and flexible way and share it with everybody. So we'll transfer merit now. So please join palm. I vow to dispel the 3 hindrances and all affliction. I vow to attain wisdom and true understanding. I vow to eradicate each and every hindrance caused by offenses and always walk the Bodhisattva path in life after life. Amitabha. So please join palm. Bow to the Buddha. Bow to Master Sentient, the founder of Dharma. Bow to Venerable. Thank you. So today, the Dharma talk will end now. Thank you, everybody. Like before, we will upload this video on our Facebook page and our website. So the next time is our last lecture. So you all have heard that the next lecture will be the essence of the essence. So remember, please mark your calendar. Next Saturday, in 7 p.m. in Pacific time, and in Taiwan in 10 a.m. So please turn on your camera and quickly say goodbye, and we'll close today.
阿弥陀佛。
我。